And further to that report, our business editor Abid Ali spoke to the CEO of one of Nigeria's biggest power companies, Genesis Electricity. He asked Akinwole Omboriowo just what was being done to address Nigeria's power shortages.
In Nigeria, I think that like the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, there is a lot of challenge about not just power supply, but infrastructure in general. And I think the first step is that the government and, of course, the people themselves that recognize the need to address this issue. And over the past couple of years, the Nigerian government in particular has put in place policies. They've enabled a well-structured private sector-led power sector in Nigeria. There's been the Nigerian Electricity Power Sector Reform Act, which is in force. We have a strong regulator in place to ensure there's transparency of how the players, the producers, independent producers of electricity, and of course the consumers, and how they interact. And the sector itself has been privatized. So over the past, I would say, 2 years, there's been an upsurge of activities on how power is produced. There's been foreign direct investment that has come into the power sector. There's been a lot of domestic investment in the power sector. Genesis has been an example. And it's a long, drawn-out game. So in terms of being able to turn the corner of having 100% of power supply to almost every corner of the country, it will take some time. But I think the main thing is that there's determined effort on the part of the government, and the sector itself is warming up to producing more power.
Is it possible to connect everyone to the grid, or is there a role for solar and wind energy?
I think it's going to be a mix. My understanding is that for the transmission network as we have it today, we have less than 5,000 megawatt of transmission capacity. We have a country of over 160 million per capita electricity consumption of less than 150 kilowatt. And what that means is that, we need over 40,000 megawatt of power. So in the short term, you will need to have a combination of distributed renewable energy solution for the rural areas where it is less economically viable to build huge infrastructures, both on the thermal side and on transmission network. And of course, for the urban areas where you already have a similarly decent infrastructure, both on the transmission and distribution, the intention of the government, of course, is to continue to increase the investment, both on the public sector side and, of course, to engender more private sector participation.
We see the Chinese have agreed to spend billions on infrastructure projects across Africa and Nigeria. Why are Western organizations, nations not meeting that challenge?
Well, I'm going to speak from the point of view of Genesis, which is to speak on point of view of what I know. General Electric is an American-owned company. Without General Electric and with their visible support in the power sector in Nigeria, and primarily for Genesis, it would have been impossible in the very short term to put in place 84 megawatt for the Port Harcourt refinery. I'm also aware of other support, other investment that General Electric is making in Nigeria. For example, they're putting $1 billion into building a major facility in Calabar, which is another area where Genesis is currently producing electricity over the past 7 years. Of course, the Chinese, I've heard, are also making their investment plans, and I understand that they've signed some sort of memorandum of understanding with the Nigerian government. But I think that for those of us that work with a lot of companies in the UK, in the US and other parts of Europe, we see a visible footprint of these companies in Nigeria.
When you are talking to business leaders overseas, are they more cautious investing in Nigeria because of Boko Haram?
Today, Africa, particularly Nigeria, as the largest economy in Africa, is the darling of investors. The Boko Haram menace, as you know, it's not just terrorism is not just peculiar to Nigeria. It's a global phenomenon. And it's one that, I've read and I've seen that global leaders are coming together to try and find a solution to. So, I mean, this is a cautious word, but I don't think that it deters investment, especially If we look at the fact that the Boko Haram is actually limited to a certain part of the country and mainly the northeast, unfortunately. And there's a lot more investment to be done in other parts, and so I think that given the numbers and given the economics of scale and given the other mitigants that is put in place by the government, I think that we've seen an increase in upsurge of investment rather than a decrease of it.